Welcome back. If you haven't seen the first video in this series, I strongly encourage you to do that. By the very nature of any video series on stages, especially sequential stages, the first and following videos are really foundational to the others. They're cumulative in their information and principles. So please go back and watch that video if you haven't already. Toward the end of the last video, I stated that the two primary functions of any group, or at least two of the functions, should be relational trust and functional progress, that the team wants to be together and they're supporting each other and they're moving toward a specific goal. But those two dynamics are not necessarily naturally aligned with each other. In fact, especially in Western culture, they can be very conflicting. Let's take a look today at how Western individualism really makes it difficult to go through the stages of group formation for everybody's benefit. Generally speaking, capitalism and democracy value functional progress over relational trust. Now think about what I just said. Generally speaking, capitalism, which is do your very best so you can be rewarded more in salary or property or possessions or whatever, and because there's a limited number of resources out there, that means that the person with the most initiative, the most skills and information and hard work ethic, they're going to be rewarded more, which means others are going to be rewarded less who do not show as much initiative, educational background, skills, work ethic, etc., etc. So capitalism works against group formation or group cohesion, because eventually, to quote an old movie, there can only be one, number one. We can't all come in first, right? You can't have more than one chief executive officer. You might have a chief financial officer, an information officer, and others, operational officer. But the chief executive officer, there's only one. So capitalism works against that. Democracy can also work against group formations, because the theory of democracy is one man or one person, one vote. So 51% in theory get their way. What about the other 49%? They just have to drink water and move out, as we say in the Army sometimes, or suck it up and drive on. That can work against group cohesion or group formation and relational trust, because others feel like that the majority has their way and they're neglecting or abusing or forgetting about the minority, even if it's only 49% to 51%. Now, I do want to clarify and emphasize that I believe capitalism is the best form for economics or the economy, and democracy is the best form of government. I believe that they both provide the greatest respect for human beings. I believe they motivate the best. I believe that they validate each other's worth. However, because human nature is basically self-interested, we must have checks and balances in the system, as we do in our country. And it's only when there are not checks and balances in place that capitalism and democracy can be distorted and used to benefit those with the most power or authority, or able to leverage their position. So, especially in the West, I'm primarily talking about Americans, but there are other nations as well. We really need to understand that we sit in a societal soup that is always preaching to us values of individualism. We're told that we want to work in groups, but other parts of our society are saying climb the ladder of success. It's a rat race. You know, you got to step on some heads and toes to get to the top. Another truth here that we really need to understand is that the West recognizes that when relationship is greater or valued more than progress, it will equal complacency in groups. And we can see this in a lot of third world nations that are very communal. If you've ever been to a third world nation, and I've been in several. I was one a few years ago, and I remember Our family was driving down this road. It was a very, very long, straight road, and it was pretty bumpy, so we were going slow in this bus. And we could see ahead of us, way off in the distance, was a small group of people by a vehicle on the side of the road. And it took us 10 minutes to get to them because we were going so slow. And in that time, I was watching them trying to figure out what they were doing. Well, as we got closer, it was very apparent they weren't doing anything. The vehicle had a flat tire, a busted axle or something, and it was sitting there on 3 wheels with the other tire off, and they were kind of talking to each other, but nobody was making any effort to fix it. Nobody was walking to find help. Nobody was on a phone. Now maybe they had already gotten in touch with somebody. Maybe somebody had gone, but we continued down that road for another 20 minutes beyond them, and there was nothing around. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and nothing was being done, because that society values relationship more than progress. It was more important how they spend their time together. Now, as a Westerner, I look at that and I think, wow, what a waste of time. Not necessarily. They value the relationships, but to such an extreme that there's not a lot of progress in that country. Nobody wants to really get ahead of anybody else unless it's in a criminal sense, and that's a subject of another video. But in the West, we recognize that we cannot value relational trust and community over progress, or we'll have a complacent society. Therefore, we tend to lead the world in science, industry, art, sports, but also individualism. I've been all over the world as a soldier. I could count the number of countries I've lived in, not on 2 hands. The number of countries I've visited on both hands and toes. And it's very easy to see what their views of Westerners are and how we compare to other countries in the world, both north and south of the equator, east and west. We are very individualistic. Capitalism and democracy, again, it promotes excellence and superiority in research, development, physical fitness, entertainment, you name it. We lead the world in anything related to consumerism because we're a consumer-based society. We want to have the best, so we tend to produce the best. But there's a downside to that. We also, as Westerners, need to recognize that when progress is valued more than relationship, it results in a dog-eat-dog mentality in groups. Now, the intensity of this will vary based on the individuals in the group. If you have a relatively healthy family, a relatively healthy group of coworkers at your job, a relatively healthy neighborhood, that dog-eat-dog may not be extreme, but if you look real close, you'll see it. If the pollen from one yard floats over into somebody else's yard and the clover from your grass gets into their immaculate yard, you may see a different side of your neighbor. If you show up a little bit late at work because you were spending a little more time with your family at breakfast, and that doesn't jive with somebody else's value of productivity in their job, and they always show up an hour early, you may see a different side of your coworker. So when progress is valued more than relationship, we see this dog-eat-dog, which is counterproductive to doing well in groups. We may have progress, but it feels more like a rat race where we're willing to eat each other to get ahead. So we also tend to lead the world in egotism, consumerism, debt, obesity, mental illnesses of anxiety, depression, obsessive behaviors, and others. All this comes with our overemphasis on individual progress or functional progress over relational trust. Why is this? Because the sense of progress tends to free us from the sense of needing each other. It's just natural when we don't feel as safe, we don't feel as that we belong, we tend to group together. When we do feel that we have all the basics that we need, we tend to break away from the pack and try to seek things that are more beneficial to us as an individual based on our unique individual abilities or interests or skills or passions. It's a natural thing that we always have to be aware of. So what do we do about it? At a minimum, two things. We redefine progress more broadly and deeply, meaning our progress in groups has to be more than a specific function, has to be more than winning that softball game, has to be more than making money in our business. It has to be more than a reputation in our neighborhood, as a family in our neighborhood. Has to be more than a singular function or measurement of progress. We have to look more broadly and more deeply. And related to that, we need to identify specific ways that we need each other for these broader and deeper goals. When we can begin to do that, to see progress as more than a laser focus on a singular achievement, then we will begin to see that we need each other because of our great variety of experiences and passions and abilities. If I only see you and you only see me in terms of one specific definition of progress, then you're only going to see my education, or you're only going to see my skill set, or you're only going to see my physical strength toward a particular task, or certain aspects of my personality. But if you want to grow, or I want to grow in other things, I want to grow in my open-mindedness, I want to grow in my humility, I want to grow in my interpersonal skills, I want to grow in my ability to articulate myself, then I'm going to begin to see other things in you, and you will begin to see other things in me, and we will connect much more deeply, much more intricately. Everybody will benefit, individuals and the group, and even the singular tasks that our groups exist for, that softball league or that office job or that neighborhood or anything else, those will be richer, those will be more significant, those will be more long-lasting achievements because of the nuances of strength that we begin to discover and bring. Hope that makes sense to you. Next week we will start with the first phase, and we'll look at each of those phases and see how progress, functional progress, and relational trust don't have to be at odds with each other. We'll look at some specific strategies of how to build both in each stage, and I hope to see you then.